Aaron Brooks situation. So Christian Piles was as gracious to invite me on to Flow Radio. Had a conflict and didn't get to go on, and the reason to go was to help bring a little clarity to you guys as it pertains to the Aaron Brooks situation. Now, I listened to a show last night, and it was colloquialisms for sure. But neither guy said anything that was wrong, and that was Willie and Bosch. Christian touched on it from a here's what's happening standpoint. So give me 20 seconds to fill you in on that, and then let's dig into what that means. Because one thing about USADA, there's a language. And that's where I can help you to know what is being said. So there's something called an assay, fancy word for test. Comes back and see, I hate that. I really don't like when this happens. Aaron Brooks went down on a DHEA, okay, for having that in his system. And the reason I don't like it, just to give you a recent comparison, King Green, formerly known as Bobby Green, just went down on the same thing. And USADA, the commission, Dana, talking heads like me, we all hated it for him. USADA themselves hated this for Bobby because his mind and heart were so innocent. DHEA sits on the shelf in Westland, Oregon at the Walmart. You do not have to go to a GNC type nutrition store. You do not have to seek it out. It sits on the shelf at Walmart. That's a literal, in my own town, right outside of this building, right next to vitamin C and vitamin D. It sits right next to it. And the reason I tell you that is when you look at an athlete and you try to decide what his intent is. When you're dealing with a kid, which anybody within their years of learning certainly qualifies as a kid. And to believe that a kid would believe that something he can go legally obtain would be legal. For a kid to assume for something to be illegal against sport, it's got to be illegal. Who represents 100% of athletes. And I bring being a kid into this just to help to tell the story, the reality. It wouldn't matter if you were 30 years old. It wouldn't matter if you were 40 years old. A very reasonable belief is that for it to be illegal, it needs to be illegal. So when King Green went down on this, he told the story just like I just did, which was the truth. He goes, I went, and his was also a Walmart. He goes, I went to Walmart and got this. Would you take it to enhance your performance? Of course. It's specifically why I took it. I took it with the multivitamin and everything else to feel good, to be healthier, to be able to train hard. Yes. And King Green's honesty cut everybody off guard. They actually go to the Walmart, and sure enough, it's sitting on the shelf. And I didn't have to do that step because I have a Walmart in my town. I know right where it sits. Great big letters, DHEA. Now, that's why I don't like that Brooks got hit with this. That's just a very tough one. I remember when J.O. got hit for Adderall, and it was the exact same thing, where Adderall was allowed. It was legal. There was a form that needed filled out, but J.O. didn't know he needed a form because he looked at it the same way. If I'm taking something that's legally prescribed to me, it's going to be legal for sport. And when they sit down to punish you, is when it gets revealed if they believe that. Now, what do I mean? Okay. So, I have tried everything on the outside chance that it might help. I can remember growing up and my father, for my birthday, I got $20. And he'd take me to any store. I could pick out whatever I wanted for that. $20. Now, by the way, when I got older, I found out my father spent much more, just told me it was a $20 limit. But at any rate, I would always want to go to the GNC. And all I would do is walk the aisles, and I'd have so much fun. You have to just stand there and wait for me. I spend an hour, and I'm looking at dudes with their shirt off. Like, whatever product I bought is just whoever looked best on the bottle. That was it. I would compare the bottles. Anything on the outside chance that it might work. And I have to word it like that because nothing did. It was tremendously disappointing to the point that I would call it fraudulent. But I still tried it. I drank all that protein and something called HMB and then something called creatine. And then if you mixed HMB and creatine, it was all these different things. I remember when Mark McGuire was all juiced up, but he came out and said what he was on. I could not have got to that store fast enough to go buy that. And with that said, if you come over to my house right now, I have an absurdly large amount of DHEA. Now, I got enough testosterone to get me through the month. I get that up every month. I have just enough to get me through the month. DHEA, I got tons of it. Why? Because it doesn't work, so I quit taking it. 100% why I quit screwing a bottle. These other ones, I gotta fill a syringe, and I gotta point, I gotta order it, and I gotta wait for days. It's this whole colossal thing. DHEA, take it. Could it be easier? And I don't do it because it doesn't work. It will not make you bigger, stronger, or faster. However, there's a piece of science out there that believes for certain peptides to be activated, they can only be activated in the presence of DHEA. So you need to take DHEA to get these other peptides to work. And USADA has a number of things that are banned that they will openly admit are not performance enhancers. That is a misunderstanding by the media. The media tells you guys that USADA is checking for performance enhancers. USADA doesn't say that. That is the media creation. USADA has an allowed list and they have a banned list. There are things on the banned list that do not help your performance. There are things that are allowed that absolutely are performance enhancers. Just to clearly explain this distinction, but a number of things that they will check for that they admit are not performance enhancers but are banned is because they believe it's a way to catch cheating after the fact. Our tests might have missed fill in the blank. But if we can get this other agent, which is used as a masking agent, we can catch it after the fact. Now, the deal with USADA, while you have a random test, which is what they tell you, there's a truth to that, a very big truth, that they have a pool and at random names come out. There's a truth to that, but there's not an absolute. They know who's cheating without testing them. They know. Now they just got to catch them. And I share that with you because you'll see some guys that have never been tested in their whole career. You'll see another guy that was tested 25 times in 1 year, which represents every other week. They had a heavyweight. They knew he was cheating. They just couldn't catch him. So they came at 11 p.m. and tested him. Totally clean. They came back 7 hours later and tested him again. A very common logical thing to play when you're a cheater is, I'm only going to see these guys so often, so I won't do anything until they come. As soon as they come, that's when I'll use, because there'll be a break before I see him again. So USADA, that's not random that the guy's name came, and then it was random that it came up again. I mean, I'm just sharing with you, like, they know. I don't need a drug test on anybody. I just got to see him with his shirt off. I'll not only tell you if he's a user, I'll tell you specifically what he is using. Now, But USADA's got this same skill. And the reason I take the time to really explain that distinction is we will find out together what they think. DHEA historically is treated very light. And it's treated very light because it sits on the shelf at your local store. You don't have to seek it out. It is truly on the vitamin shelf. And USADA, for as powerful as they are and as tough as they are, you'll find them to be very reasonable, like human beings that you can actually talk to. Hey, here's what happened. And they'll look into it and they'll investigate and everything will be vetted. But they will definitely demonstrate to you that they believe you. They believe you. And whether it was against our rules or not, if you did not intend to break our rules, they will demonstrate to you that human side. And they will do that specifically with a product like DHEA through the form of a 12-month ban, time served. They'll trace it back to the day of the test. And all of a sudden, that's as close as they can possibly do. They don't give smaller sentences than 12 months. They just don't do it. They don't do 3-month bans. They just don't do it. But they will demonstrate to you, we believe you. And this is a lesson learned for everyone. And they'll do that in the form of a 12-month ban with time served. So we will all find out together if USADA believes there was more to it. We will find out. And USADA might not say it. They may not ever say the words. I'm letting you guys know how this works. We will find out, do they believe there was nothing nefarious and nothing they missed? If they give a 2-year suspension, that is our sign from USADA that they believe there was a cocktail and that we didn't catch it. By the way, I really don't want to attach this whole cocktail and not believe in other substances to Aaron Brooks. I was actually kind of got off of Aaron Brooks and I was sharing with you how USADA works. I don't want that tied to Aaron. I really don't like that this happened to him. And I feel like he has been very candid with us. One of the problems that you run into as a human being, and everybody deals with this, all the way to a court of law when they get sworn in and they're under oath, is when the honest person adds something to their story. Now, they justify it because that something only helps support the truth. But it's very common that somebody will add to the story. And there's times where there is no story. This was on the shelf at Walmart. I bought it and took it. And that's a very hard thing to get yourself to that point. And that's one piece about this story where it's gone a little bit different direction. Of I was having some medicals and I was being tested, and I'm going to leave it at that. But the first time that I heard that this shoe was going to drop, you know what? I'm going to leave it at that. My attempt here was to tell you a little bit about how this process works. And I most definitely stand with and believe Aaron Brooks.